Hey everyone, it's Sam, and welcome back to the 911 Nonsense podcast. To stay in the loop, learn about upcoming guests, and join in the conversations with the Noon community, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And hey, if you like what you hear in this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world to us. On this episode, we meet Ginger Locke, an EMS educator and the host of Medic Mindset. She shares her journey from paramedic to instructor, her passion for teaching, and the lessons learned from real-world patient care. She opens up about a critical diagnostic error early in her career and how it shaped her approach to education. We also discuss EMS fatigue, burnout, and the importance of supporting healthcare workers. Don't miss this insightful conversation with one of the EMS education's leading voices. Let's get started. Hey guys, are you looking for a top-notch first aid kit? Look no further than Jump Medic. Owned by a seasoned paramedic with over a decade of EMS experience, their kits are user-friendly and packed with essential supplies. From the most popular Pro Gen 2 to the compact hardshell kit, they've got you covered. You can even customize your own kit with the Build-A-Bag option. Enter the code NOON10, N-O-O-N, the number 10, and enjoy 10% off your order. Free US shipping, and everything is HSA FSA approved. Visit jumpmedic.com and follow at jumpmedicusa on Instagram. Stay prepared with Jump Medic. Ginger, thank you so much for joining us on the 911 Nonsense podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I've been teaching today and looking forward to talking to you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you on. This has been a fun venture. I think out of all of the podcasts that I've found in EMS, most people compare me a lot to yours, which is outstanding. That's amazing. I do love listening to your podcast, and I find a lot of value in the things that you talk about, which is great. I think that that's how podcasts should be, and I feel like for the most part they are. If you find value, you continue listening.
Yeah, it's nice that there's such a variety, right? There's a bunch of EMS podcasts, and so it's nice that people can kind of plug in and find one that matches their kind of interests. So when you're listening to a podcast, you can kind of feel like you're with friends, you know?
Yes.
Driving around and get to know the hosts and get to know the format and like, oh, this matches kind of my energy. I think that's a big part of it, is like the host match your own energy as a listener.
Yes. Oh, it's so awesome when you find a podcast that does that for you. Can I go ahead and get a quick introduction, Ginger?
Sure. So my name's Ginger Locke. I live in Austin, Texas. I moved here in 1998, actually, after college. I grew up and went to college in Athens, Georgia. I have a degree in sociology from the University of Georgia. Moved to Austin thinking and I did begin grad school here at University of Texas to study sociology. And there were these amazing ambulances here in Austin. They were like freaking huge. And you just couldn't miss them on the roadways. And I had always kind of been interested in EMS. And at the same time, the community college would send out these little catalogs to like every resident in the area. And I looked and I saw they had an EMS program. And I was in grad school and not really loving being inside. I kind of made a mistake in life in terms of getting off track. I'm really happy for this mistake, but I took a year off between undergraduate and graduate school and worked for FedEx for a year. And I loved being outside. I loved the fast pace. I loved talking to people, using my body. And so going back into the classroom to study for a PhD was kind of like, I knew that first semester I finished it, but I was like, I don't think this is my path. And so I left University of Texas, went across the interstate to the community college where they have a great program. It's where I currently teach, Austin Community College, and met the faculty and amazing people beginning their EMS career, people I still talk to, people I still teach with. And so I went to paramedic school, and about halfway through paramedic school, I wasn't learning as fast as I wanted to learn just doing classroom. And so I went and found a job at a local community outside of Austin. It's about an hour from Austin, called Marble Falls. And because of like their distance from hospitals and It's more of a rural setting. The medicine's really hard out there. And so I worked as an EMT with a phenomenal paramedic for a year. She was my partner, and I learned a ton from her. Then I worked as an AEMT. And then the day I got my paramedic, Texas paramedic, they literally took off my patch, sewed, like hand sewed on the paramedic patch. And I started working there as a paramedic. Worked out there for a while, several years, and became a shift supervisor, which anyone listening, they know that like leadership or management in EMS, it's really freaking hard. It amounts to a lot of like calling people, trying to like get shift coverage and broken down trucks and interfacing with the hospitals and all. I mean, it's a huge task to go from being paramedic to leadership. Um, and I honestly I didn't enjoy it. I missed the just the very simple where the rubber meets the road, taking care of people. So I was kind of burning out a little bit. And around that time, a former teacher where I'd gone to school at Austin Community College recruited me to come back and teach. And I have been teaching there. This fall will be 20 years. And about, let's see, 2016, I started a podcast called Medic Mindset. And the idea was to fill in some of the blanks that brand new paramedics have about more of like cultural issues, or like how, how do paramedics handle simple things like their diet, or just like basically what are their habits and tactics to navigate this like weird job. And so 2016, I just kind of started interviewing graduates of our program and like, how's it going out there? What's your favorite mistake? What are lessons hard learned? All of that. And then it kind of parlayed because I had access to other podcasters, other educators kind of around the country. I started kind of going to conferences and speaking. I met all these like really amazing people. And so I started bringing more of what I would call like experts onto the podcast to talk about how they think through calls, how they like one series I have is called the Thinking Series, and I talk to emergency medicine physicians, EMS physicians about, hey, if you hear the chief complaint chest pain, how do you sort through your assessment, your differential, and how do you approach treatment plans? And so it got a little, it left like this human interest space, which was what it was at the beginning. It kind of started having this academic, educational content on the podcast. And so that kind of parlayed into the ability for people listening to Medic Mindset. There's some episodes that are educational and like core curriculum, like good clinical education, that I was able to use some of those as CE. And so then that kind of parlayed into what I'm currently doing with a company where I'm the director of user experience for a learning management system. And it's the same company that like issues CE for listening to Medic Mindset. So those are kind of the three things I've got going on. I'm teaching full time. I've got Medic Mindset that's very much a passion project and something I just thoroughly enjoy doing. And then the third piece is about 10 hours a week doing some work for an online learning company. And I have a kid. I have a 15-year-old son. He's spectacular. Really neat to watch human development through the years and hit those teenage years. And then I have a wife who is a paramedic. She works for Austin Travis County EMS and has been for 18 years, I believe she's been there. So some shop talk at home, but mostly not too
That's
much
great.
talk.
Yeah, no, it's good to have
Yeah.
that separation. There's a couple
Yeah.
of topics I want to hit on. And the first one was that you said you got your degree in sociology. What
hmm
was your intention initially for that? Like what do you do with a sociology degree?
Yeah. It's a great question because my son just asked me that same question. Um, I explained to him the circle of liberal arts education. So it was a bachelor's of arts, and what people do with those types of degrees is they get a PhD and they teach other people and do research.
Oh, that's
And it's
fantastic.
almost like a self-propelling circle. I think I wanted to be PhD teaching at a university, and so and doing research. And I think I've it's interesting that kind of landed back in the collegiate kind of environment, academic environment, teaching.
Sure.
My mom was a college professor, and so I think there may be some genetic wiring in there that I just
Yeah.
can't get away from.
I mean, you're still a teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you talked about working at FedEx.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't want to offend anybody, right? But going from
Yeah.
FedEx to being in the ambulance, right? You're driving a huge truck. The difference is though
Yeah.
you have to now you're adding in that human component where you're actually taking care of sick people. Do you ever miss the component of just dropping off packages and going on about your day?
I do think about what my life might have looked like if I had stayed at FedEx, because it's definitely a very viable career, right? I mean, people make a very nice living, and there's something very meditative about that type of work because you're mostly quiet all day long.
Yeah.
You get in this flow state where you're doing you're on the routine, and there's a little bit of fun that you could add into it about racing the clock and how fast can I do things, how efficient can I get with my little systems and my, moving logistics, right? It gets really fun. Like, how can I do this efficiently? I think I think I would have been lonely, because as much as I'm very much an introvert. I think I would have done fine. I am not one to like go out and find community. Like, I'm not just like, oh, I'm going to go to this festival or I'm going to go join this meetup group. That is not Ginger at all. And so what EMS brought to me was like this instant community of people that they're similar enough, right? We have shared values about taking care of people. We have confidence because we do hard things. And so I met kind of a community of similarly minded enough people that that's been really special to me. I have friends still from paramedic school, now, many, decades later, that I feel very close to. My best friend, in fact, he and I went to paramedic school together. And so I would have missed, man, you think of what EMS gives us. Like, we get to go into people's homes, see how they're living, see human suffering on a very granular level. And I don't think human suffering is beautiful, but I do think it is very real. It's very authentic.
It is very authentic. I agree. And I hear what you're saying about that. Yes. And I was just talking to one of my partners about this the other day about how, like, I can't remember what started the conversation, but it was only weirdos get into EMS. And then you think about it, you're
Mm.
like, oh, well, I am that weirdo, right? And now I've been doing it for
Mhm.
20 plus years, so we are those weirdos.
I get to see the students, the ones that chose. They're like, "Ooh, I want to do this," and it's so neat talking to them about, why, how'd you get here, right? How did you land? Because I was just with them just today in first semester of paramedic school at Austin Community College. It's like, what was your life trajectory? How did you land here? What are you hoping? What intrinsic need inside of you are you hoping that it's going to meet? It's varied. Some people are healing, some people have never done something hard in their life before. And I think that was the case with me. I'd always been kind of in my brain, very intellectual, academic pursuits, but I'd never done anything particularly hard in terms of interpersonal and human interaction. I was kind of, sheltered kid,
Mhm.
always in school. Some of them are fresh out of high school and want to see if they can do it, and they're not exactly sure where it's going to lead. Some of them are retiring from jobs that didn't bring them fulfillment, like the tech industry, and they want to be doing something that has more meaning in their mind. So
Yeah,
it's like so varied. It's so varied.
it is varied. There's so many people too that use this as a second or even a third career choice because you get through part of your life and you're like, what am I doing? And
Mm-hmm.
then they're like, okay, well, I want to help people. And that's a really cool experience too. I was, my father was a police officer, so I knew I was going to be going down that similar route. I'm so glad I didn't become a police officer. I think
Yeah.
EMTs are way better. Yeah, the cops have it so hard these days. It's such a just a hard job. I don't know. I started at a young age and I don't think that I would have taken it any other way. I was a basic for 3 years. I became an intermediate for 3 years and I've been a paramedic ever since. And like I said, I'm 20 plus years. So it's really cool to
Mm.
see, like you talk about getting to do that with the students, but I get to do that here with the podcast too, as I'm getting to learn about why people got into the position that they got into, especially in the medical field, and it could be any part of the medical field. And everybody's why
Hmm.
is so different.
Yeah, we like to like tell ourselves the narrative that it's about helping people. And I think that is a nice part of it. It's like, like you're a community worker, right? Like you're helping your community. I think it also has to fulfill something a little deeper inside yourself in terms of maybe it feels really good to go put order to chaos. It's kind of like, maybe your own life is out of control and it feels really good to make it at the end of a call. It's like, whew, that is all, I tidied that up. I got from point A to point B and took a really like messy point A and got it to point B that's a little more tidy. So I think it's more, right? When people do an interview or something, they'll say, I want to help people. If you just wanted to help people, there's like a million ways to do that. Like you specifically picked this career. What is it? What's it feeding inside of you?
Yes.
Yeah. And that could be like healthy origins, or it could also be somewhat, maladaptive origins of like you're trying to satisfy something that's broken or
Hmm.
something.
Yes, which I fear is probably a higher percentage than we would like to admit to in our field, right? I think a lot of
Yeah.
people come from broken systems or broken homes, and the idea is that they want to fix the people that are also going through that by also fixing themselves
Hmm.
while they're doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, from your time in the field, what would you say has been one of your more memorable experiences?
I've got a couple. One was really joyful. I delivered a baby when I was in paramedic school when I was a AEMT, and it was just like a comedy of errors, and everything went beautifully and swimmingly, and it was like a happy call, but it was just kind of it's just like a funny one to look back on. I'm still in touch with the two medics I was with on that call. Um, and so it was really cool to do that also at the beginning of your career. It was just a fun memory that I'll always have. And then the other call um, that I think I try to share it with everyone who will listen was an error. And it was a diagnostic error. I misunderstood a patient's condition and went down a wrong treatment path. And luckily, he survived me and got to the hospital where they discovered what was actually going on and corrected his problem. And I teach it because I think for two reasons. One, there's some like curriculum in there to cover, but two, every one of them will, it may be minor or maybe major. Uh, we all make mistakes, and so what to do with that. And luckily when this happened, I had a mentor who told me. He said, I've made mistakes too, and the way I honor that patient is to tell everyone who will listen that cautionary tale of like, hey, this happened, don't make the same mistake I made. So I'd love to share it with you if you want to
Yes,
hear about the
please
call.
do. I already have
All
questions.
right. Okay, cool. So it was summer in Texas, which should have been my first clue about what was wrong with this guy, but it was just for an unknown unresponsive on the side of the road. And when we got there, the police were there. I think someone had called because he was just laying on the side of the road. And we assumed maybe like motor vehicle, kind of auto pedestrian or something related to the roadway. And when we got there, he was in the ditch and he had a few little ants on him. They were not fire ants, they were just little ants. So I was like, oh, maybe this is anaphylaxis. And then the one of the law enforcement said, we know this guy, he's a user. And what that did was, and we know about this, right? It kind of anchored me or biased my brain and I kind of got stuck there. I got a blood sugar really early because I was like, oh, please be hypoglycemia because that's like straightforward and I know how to fix you. His blood sugar was fine. And we got him on the monitor really, really fast. My partner got him on the monitor really fast. And that's another kind of place where this goes off the rails is that I saw a rhythm that I just got sucked into the rhythm and the rate. So it was a narrow complex tachycardia at a rate of 194. And
Goodness.
so fresh out of paramedic school, I assumed, oh, this is SVT, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we say once the rate is over, 160-ish, and this is the key word, consider that it might be SVT. Now, people can get in tachycardic if we put a 20-year-old on a treadmill, they can get their heart rate up to 198, 200, and you're still in a sinus rhythm. And so when I saw that, in my head, I thought 194, narrow complex is SVT. And so I went down the whole SVT algorithm, including, because he was unresponsive, including synchronized cardioverting. Nothing changed his rhythm, nothing made him better. So finally we were like, oh, let's go to the hospital, right? Um, when we got to the hospital, they did what I should have done, which is they took a temperature, and his core temp was like 105.9 or something like that.
Oof,
So
that's
he was in
hot.
heat stroke. And the heat stroke was making him tachycardic and also unresponsive. And so it wasn't the tachycardia causing him to be, it wasn't hyperperfusing his brain. He wasn't hypotensive, all things that I knew. I just ignored. He had strong radial pulses. I ignored that. His skin was pink. I ignored that. There were really no indications that this was cardiac in origin, but I used this mental shortcut of, oh, if it's over 160, it's narrow, it's probably SVT. And that's actually not true. And I think being fresh out of paramedic school, I just clung under stress. I clung to this guideline I had been taught without thinking critically and doing a more deliberate assessment and thinking about my own thinking and slowing down and saying, oh, his blood pressure's okay. Like, we have time. I don't need to jump straight to treatment. I can like do a little further assessing, like taking a temperature, thinking about the fact that we're outdoors in August in Texas at 6 p.m. The ambient temperature is really hot. And so I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how paramedic brains work or don't work. I learned a lot about my fallibility. It was very humbling. And I learned a little bit about how to teach, and that if you give people black and white rules like that, those are really seductive, beautiful things to latch onto and use during times of stress. And it's very difficult to release those and think more critically about your thinking.
I love that description. That is a seductive pull towards that. And it's
It's
so true.
seductive. It's like,
Yes.
just like I wanted his blood sugar to be low, I'm hoping. The second I see a narrow complex 194, I'm like, cool, I know what this is. And it's very relieving to think you've figured out the problem and thereby like narrow your differential. And that call was a good bit of the origins kind of story for medic mindset as well, because I want brand new paramedics to know that like these cognitive pitfalls are EMS is just a landfill of pitfalls, right?
Mhm.
It's not designed for, it's not the best environment for really good thinking.
It's not. It can be
Yeah,
hard. And the way you're right,
yeah.
like when teachers are teaching to a black and white, like I can still tell you, right, if it's if it's a female on birth control with shortness of breath, what's your first go-to, right? PE. PE. She is going to have a PE because they don't highlight the consider, like you said. It's very black and white. Well, if it's this, then it's this. And I'm glad to see that we're getting away from that style of teaching and having people be more open-minded because it's hard to get out of that when you're stuck down that rabbit hole, especially when you're tired, you're exhausted, you've been on the truck for the last 10 hours, you still have another like 2 to 4 hours left of your shift. You don't want to think. You want to just go down that rabbit hole.
And I hadn't seen a lot of patients up to that point. We think about the volume of patients we see in paramedic school. It's actually not that many because we're on an ambulance and we see them one at a time. And part of my job in teaching is I take students, we precept our students in the ER, paramedic students. And so I'm going to the ER, I would say 8 times a semester, where now I see like, oh, the septic patients, they can get up into the 180s, 190s. And I'm seeing these patterns more regularly where I had never seen a sinus tack that fast until that day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And going down the sepsis line, right? They're not always going to be febrile, right? They
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
low also. You could have a low temperature instead of a high temperature. So it's really
Hmm.
cool to see the movement of medicine. One of the things that you had talked about in the form that I sent you is using AI as a personal paramedic coach. And I find that so fascinating because I'm all about this AI trend. I know a lot of people are kind of like, I don't know how to feel about this. I'm super excited to see what we can do with AI, especially in the medical field. Like we could cut out so many diagnostic errors. We can cut out so
Mm.
many things if we're using these tools correctly. So how do you use this tool?
Yeah, this one's specific to education. I mean, you're right. The applications are just gonna be far and wide. I was just talking to a student who's a scribe for a physician. He basically just follows this physician around and writes down stuff he's saying. And I'm like, ooh, that job's not gonna exist in 6 months, like to a year. Like there will be something, audio recorder listening, and just like a Zoom call, you get this nice summary and transcript.
Yes.
So AI is, I can't really think of why we wouldn't like it, except for the fact that, maybe it's combing the internet, and so it is only as smart as the source materials.
And we all know you should believe everything you find on the internet 100%.
And there is some evidence that they can have hallucinations, is what they're calling it, where it will make up some stuff if it's not sure.
Interesting.
Um, yeah. So, it's a tool, just like a Google search is a tool. And like you, I've tried to figure out like how can I use it to make things more efficient. And I do things like I'll let it listen to a lecture, and then it will provide a summary of what I've said and the transcript. I think that's really cool to like have this documentation of what all was said in lecture for a student in the future, right? They can like review what was said, maybe search the document for keywords and learn more about it. But the professional or paramedic coaching part, this is something that is, when you look at continuing education, it's April 3rd. We just had March 31st. A bunch of people just bolused themselves with a bunch of CE clicking through online, and it was a big bolus, right? And it really, for continued competency, you would be doing more regular intervals, every month, a little reminders and flashcardy type, keeping yourself fresh. But that's not how CE currently is kind of, the system isn't designed that way because it's every 2 years. And so one thing that ESO trialed, and it was a great success, was after a call, this was like a beta test, and there's certainly experts that know more about this than me. This is my understanding, is they would then be able to access some educational info about maybe their differential with stroke, and so they could take a little 15-minute module about strokes, and here's your differentials, and here's some signs and symptoms, just a little small educational module, and get 15 minutes of CE. And so that is more of like you think of a maintenance strip, right? That's like, oh, I'm running calls, it's fresh in my mind, I'm thinking about this patient I just saw. That's more interesting to me right now than in a couple of months I'm going to take a whole hour long stroke class, and it's not really tied together with what you're currently experiencing. So I'm really excited about that kind of education, because after a call is when you're interested in it and your brain's kind of primed to learn more. So that's one piece. That could be AI, or it couldn't. I think AI can do stuff with that, because it can more customize the education about the type of patient you just saw, and to you. Okay, and so this is the part I was thinking about for a coach. So there are some tools available that the AI gets to know you. And it gets to know you based on the types of questions you ask. So maybe if like every day I'm asking it to, can you write this apology letter to my boss? It starts realizing like, oh, Ginger's nervous about how she's doing at work. Like it understands human behavior on that level. And so it can customize its delivery. Or if I start saying, help me title an episode, but make it kind of edgy, right? It's like, oh, Ginger, it kind of gets to know you, like, oh, Ginger she's getting to be 48. She's kind of wanting to be hipper and younger. Like it kind of just gets to know your personality. And so I think talking to it like it is a friend that is getting to know you, and you can tell it like, hey, I just ran this call, typing all this in. I just ran this call. It was for a stroke, and I wasn't sure what I was looking at. Tell me more about disconjugate gaze or H pattern or whatever it is you want to know. And it can give you that info, and it's just like this ongoing dialogue. And a tool that I've taught my students is like, if we just did thoracic trauma lecture, go to ChatGPT and say, make me a 10-question multiple choice quiz over thoracic trauma. But you're only as good as your prompt, right? You're only as good as what you put in there. So if you said over thoracic trauma, the tool doesn't know, are you a thoracic surgeon, or are you, a surgical tech? What are you? So by saying, at the level of a entry level paramedic or a seasoned paramedic or paramedic in the state, right? You can like really customize it um, to who you are. And I think the more you interact with it, the more it gets to know to how to communicate with you, just like a human would.
Yeah, no, ChatGPT is great. Have you asked it to make a picture of you yet?
No, but
Yeah,
some of my colleagues at Prodigy have done that. Yeah, they're adorable.
it's
Have you?
hilarious. I have. I asked mine to make a picture based off of what it thinks about me and who I am, and it actually
Oh.
put a person sitting in a doctor's coat with there's medical textbooks all over the room that the person is sitting in, and there's a microphone, and then I ask a lot of like dietary questions for ChatGPT. So
Mm-hmm.
on the table, there's a bunch of chicken and vegetables and next to all the educational books. It was a hilarious picture. I'll post it on social media for people to see the picture and how
That's
bad it
spectacular.
is.
So it made that scene just based on dialogue that you've had with it thus far.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so I
Fascinating.
tell everybody if you use ChatGPT, ask it to draw a picture of what it thinks you are and who you are and what you do. And it gives some pretty interesting some pretty interesting pictures. Um, Tell me about one of the more like impactful moments in your career. I know you said that that diagnostic error was probably one of the strongest impactful moments for you, and understandably, right? That's a huge, I think everybody, for the most part, remembers some of our mistakes, right? Especially if it comes to like severely affecting a patient. One of the Talking of podcasts, one of the podcasts with Austin Kaiser, he does the Coffee Break Hems edition. I don't know if you've heard his, but he does a specific episode talking about how he killed a patient. And it's phenomenal the way he breaks it down and he talks about it because a lot of us are afraid to talk about it, right? We're afraid we're going to lose our career, but we all do it. And if we get to a point where we can open up and talk about it, then we can make ourselves better. And we're not only making ourselves better, we're helping other people's prevent the same errors that we have then caused, right? Um, so outside of that, what would you say is one of your other most impactful moments?
I have a couple. I mean, the one I described was the one that really stuck with me and taught me about the limits of my thinking and abilities. And the limits not just of mine, but all human brains and how they don't work perfectly. Um, as you were talking, I was just thinking of like, okay, what other things really stuck with me? I remember I was in paramedic school, and it was so I was doing school, I was doing write outs for my internship with another agency for my clinical internship for school. And then I was working full time also in EMS, and I was basically living out of my car, right? No kids at the time. And we did an interfacility transfer. So I was an intermediate at the time, so that meant I was driving paramedic in the back, and it was 3 a.m. The transfer was an hour and a half long to get there, and then an hour and a half back. And I had what is called a micro sleep. So I had just my brain turned off while I was driving just for a second, but luckily long enough. So my foot came off the gas, and I heard the engine winding down. So I didn't like nothing changed with the steering. I didn't accelerate. I just heard the whoom, and it kind of the truck was slowing down abruptly, and I'd fallen asleep. Um, and so I tell people about that too. That's the cautionary tale of the dangers of the type of work we do at the hours we do, and some people that get forced to doing multiple jobs, working for multiple agencies just to make a living. I don't know the solution to that, but I do know we need to know that it's dangerous work because I'm a good person, right? I would never have wanted to hurt the person in the back and the patient in the back or anyone else on the roadway. I wasn't intending to be dangerous, but it definitely was dangerous.
Right. Have you seen the news article of the young lady that just she fell asleep while she was driving? She was a nurse and she had just worked 3 12-hour night shifts and she ended up killing the driver of the other vehicle. Did you hear about this one? So it's interesting that you brought this up. Being on social media, like one of the things that we really do, and it's not just EMS, it's also the nurses. It's something I've talked about a lot, is that we eat our own and we eat our young like hard, right? We treat them terribly a lot of the time. And looking at the social media for this young lady who's, I think she's 22 or 23. She's a nurse. She was working 12-hour night shifts. People were just like, really, that's not an excuse. That's terrible. But, and I don't know this young lady, but like, what if this is her first real like job? And what if this is her first job on a night shift? Like that is hard and it's hard to adjust to. So being aggressive and talking down to her like, oh, well, I've been doing this for 20 years and I work nights for all of the 20 years, like it's doable. It is doable, but cut some slack to people who are new to this career and new to doing night shifts, right? We're not all made for night shifts and we're not all made for day shifts. And maybe that was something that she had to do because that being, low on the totem pole, that's where she fit. It's really disheartening to see the amount of people coming together and saying, well, she sucks, basically. And that's just a terrible way to think about it. She's in the nursing field doing the things that we all do, and she just happened to fall asleep. And that's unfortunate. And it's really sad for the gentleman that died. And it's really sad for her, too, because now she's just lost her career and she's potentially lost her life, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it's akin to when people make errors and it hits the public. I won't say it is akin to when people mistreat or abuse patients, but it is akin to unintentional like dosing errors and things like that. Um, where people here's my theory. So track with me and see if this tracks and if you I want to hear from you if you agree or not. I think when we hear those stories, right? Take her story. We want is a defense mechanism where we want to tell ourselves a story of how that could never happen to us, right? It's like, oh, I would never do that, and here's why. Here's what she did wrong. She's different than me, and it's like a defense mechanism. Same with medical errors. When you hear of somebody doing something, you really want to believe you could never do that. It's like a much safer place to be like, yeah, I would not have gone down the SVT route. I would have known it was heat stroke because I would have gotten a temp and I would have thought about the fact that it was Texas. Yeah, you can like keep telling yourself that story. It is a better way to live, like in terms of like not having to confront how fallible we are. So I think that's where some of it comes in, where people will pile on and quickly like type something out of like why they that would never happen to them.
Yes, I agree. It is a very like there's like a third degree of separation, right? I could never do that and I will never do that. But you never
Right.
know. You never know where
Yeah.
people we make mistakes, things happen. I doubt that she really wanted to fall asleep and kill some dude on the side of the road, while she was driving home that night.
Yep.
It's hard. It's hard to be kind of on the sideline when you're seeing a lot of this anger and hate towards somebody who made a mistake, especially in the medical field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. One of the things that you had mentioned too is transporting a frequent flyer who had stated that they were very nice to you. Can you share that story?
Oh yeah, I loved this call. So if you work in a certain geographical area, you'll everybody knows certain addresses where you go frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just to be very clear, my philosophy on that is they have some unmet need. Until that need gets met, they're going to keep calling, and that we should, as a healthcare professionals, as a system, figure out what that unmet need is and tackle that, not just be mad at the person. So we went to her house, and I'd seen her before, and it really struck me because she said, "Oh, I'm so glad it's you. You're one of the nice ones." And while that felt great to me, it made me really sad too because I was thinking, what have you been going through? Like, why would anyone not be nice? Like, that's just so easy just to treat you like a human. So it was scary, I guess, for me to hear her say that because it made me scared that people were intentionally like not being nice to her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is something that we deal with on the daily basis, right? We all have those frequent flyers. We all have those people that we pick up multiple times in a shift, multiple times in a week, multiple times in a month. And all you can do is be nice. Even if you don't want to be
It
nice,
really,
you're
it's the same
frustrated.
amount of time. I always looked at it as
Yes,
like, hey, it's the same amount of time frame that I'm going to be. What do I want to do with this time? Do I want to challenge myself to be the best me, or do I want to just off gas all my pathologies onto another human? And
exactly.
that's like very intellectual way of looking at it. I also have compassion for people who are in that burnout trap, and it's very difficult to like get out of it. It's easy for me. I'm a teacher now. I'm not in the truck. It's very easy for me to intellectualize and say, "Oh, just like have this positive frame." I have a lot of compassion and understand how you can get there. I guess the maybe the important piece is that we as coworkers, if the person can't identify it themselves, that a coworker steps up and gives them some feedback, or someone steps in and says, "Hey, man, like, what do you need right now to help you not be this version of
Yeah.
you?" You know?
Yeah. No, and it's hard. And that's hard to admit too. It's hard to be in that phase and admit it. I will admit that I
Mm-hmm.
was burnt out and my
Mm-hmm.
saving grace was leaving the field. And I was still
Yeah.
in medicine, but I took a whole month off before I like got back into I went and worked at the ER for a few years and that like changed my perspective completely. So it is
Mm-hmm.
hard. And it's easy to judge, but we got to remember that we should be lifting each other up instead of putting each other down.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
people usually just need time off.
Yeah.
There are all these there are all these resilience programs and mindfulness and nutrition. All these things are very important. But the thing to me that just really is it unlocks it is the ability to just take time off, and take
Yes.
a break and not be working too many. Sleep is very restorative, very healthy for your brain. It's how you process all that stuff. Um, so yes, we can do all these things to like increase our baseline a little bit with healthy life habits, but man, gotta have that time off.
I'll have that time off. That's true. Well, Ginger, it has been an amazing conversation, and I've truly appreciated getting to hang out and get to know you today. And I just want to give you the opportunity to discuss anything further that you feel that we didn't talk about or bring up anything, and then also talk about where we can find you and how we can find you.
I think let's see. Any parting thoughts? I'm not one to give advice because I think advice is like mostly the person giving the advice is really just talking about their own regrets.
Yeah, that's true.
um, so I'll just tell you where you can connect with if like you enjoyed this discussion. If you want to hear more discussions akin to this with Medic Mindset, it's 2 words: Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I have a website, medicmindset.com. You can just kind of shop around the episodes. There's show notes to see if there's any topics that are of interest to you. I'm completely off of Facebook, and it has freed up about 1 to 2 hours a day for me, which has been glorious. There's still a little bit on Instagram for Medic Mindset. You can always email me. I will respond. It's ginger@medicmindset.com. And if you're ever in Austin, I'd love to connect with you. I have listeners from the podcast that'll come through Austin sometimes, and we'll go have a coffee or something. So, and it's great because that's how I've met people all over the country and kind of heard about how EMS is outside of this little geography of Central Texas.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And thank you so much for coming out and taking the time to hang out today. And I hope you have an amazing day.
All right, you too. Thanks, Sam. This was great. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Thanks, Ginger. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show and want to show your support, be sure to check out the Noon merch store on Bonfire. Find the link in the description below. Also, if you have any guest suggestions or if you're interested in being a guest on Noon yourself, visit the website at www.samspursuit.com to get in touch.